Okay, so today I have with me Ben Azadi. He wrote Metabolic Freedom, and I know you guys have been asking a lot about the ketogenic diet, carnivore diet, metabolic questions in general. And so I thought he would be a wonderful guest to come on. I wanted him to come and answer some of our questions and talk about his new book. So thank you for coming on to our podcast.
Thank you for having me, Cassie. Love your podcast, love the work you're doing, and we're going to have fun, incredible conversation. Let's do this.
I'm excited. Okay, so here's how I want to start. So I know, and I think it was 2008, did I read that you released, like you lost like 80 pounds, right? Completely transformed your life. So looking back, what was the real turning point that set you on this path? Like, why did you do this?
Yeah, that is correct. 2008, I was 24 years old. When most people turn 24, they're maybe graduating college, starting a career, maybe starting a family. That was not my life. I was broken. I was actually looking for ways to end my life because I was actually so physically and mentally obese is what I call it. And I wanted to give up, and I explored giving up, but I kept thinking about my mother stopped me from pursuing that. So what caused me to make a change was the question. It was hitting such tough times, hitting rock bottom, being in a dark place that really forced me to make a change. I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I weighed 250 pounds at this point. I had 34% body fat, classified as being obese, high blood pressure, prediabetes, erectile dysfunction. My whole body felt inflamed, brain fog, cyclical fatigue, and 24 years old dealing with all of this. So I didn't know what to do. And I went to my doctor's appointments several times, and I would explain what's going on with me. I would explain the symptoms. And not once did my doctor ask me, what are you eating? Let's discuss your lifestyle. Let's discuss your gut microbiome, right? Your hormones. None of that was even offered to me. It was more of a suggestion like, hey, we have this, prescription medication that may mitigate some of these symptoms. And thankfully, I never went on those medications because I felt like I was too young to go on those. And it forced me to figure things out. And that's where I started to just create small changes in my life. I call it this kind of tweak a week philosophy, where I started to move my body, get steps, and then that turned into working out and then eating single ingredient foods. And taking ownership and responsibility was at the forefront of all of this, because at that time, before that, I was blaming my genetics, my enabling family members. I mean, my mom, get this, Cassie, my mom, I was obese as a kid, as I mentioned, not husky, not chunky, and I was fat. And my mom worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's like a cocaine addict's mother working for the Colombian drug cartel. So I ate a lot of fried chicken. I ate a lot of fast food. And, I was blaming my mom. I was blaming all these people. But in reality, like, I am responsible. If you're listening to this, like, you are responsible, not to negate some of the challenges you're having, but it starts with personal responsibility. So after that, 9 months later, I lost 80 pounds. I went from 34% body fat at my highest to 7% at my lowest. And that's what got me into the health arena, the health space. That was 17 years ago. And I've just been so fascinated about metabolism, all the things you love, gut health, hormones, and I've been studying it and teaching it ever since. So I've been there myself, which is hopefully relatable to a few people that are listening that have gone through a similar story, or maybe you're going through it right now. Just know there's always a light at the end of the tunnel there.
So I want to unpack a couple of things that you said for people that are listening. So you're 24 years old, very depressed because of your weight, but you had erectile dysfunction at 24. So this is near and dear to my heart as an endocrinologist. I see a lot of people who feel, especially men, very broken, very just, sick when they are young like this. And as a man with erectile dysfunction at 24, I hear can be kind of one of the lowest things, right? Because that's something that's very important to you as a man, and especially at 24. But you had all these things going on in the background. Some of it was your weight, some of it was probably depression, but just lots of different things. And so you decided to, take charge of this, take charge of your health, start to lose weight. So for the people that are listening, as you started to improve your health with nutrition and all the things, did all of this get better at once, or was it kind of like a step-by-step approach? Did you just wake up one morning and everything was better? How did that go?
It would be cool if I woke up one morning and it's all gone. No, it took many years for me to create a lot of those symptoms. So it took some time to remove those symptoms. But the thing that I learned about those symptoms is that, the erectile dysfunction, the high blood pressure, the obesity, the brain fog, all the symptoms that I was dealing with were not actually the problem. They were far removed from the problem. They were a result of the problem. Even the weight gain and being overweight and obese, I never had a weight problem. Nobody has ever had a weight problem. It's a weight symptom. So I started to understand that, okay, these symptoms are actually my body's way of communicating to me that maybe something I'm eating, something in my environment, something I'm thinking is creating interference in my body. And my body is showing me this symptom, or in my case, symptoms, like a check engine light to pay attention. So I started to look at those as not something to mask or hate, but okay, it's a clue. If I had a certain food that I thought was healthy, like oatmeal, instant oats that are like flavored, and thought I was being healthy, but then I felt like an energy crash, and maybe I woke up with like some brain fog. That was my body's way of showing me maybe that oatmeal isn't actually healthy for you. So to answer your question, it took quite some time. I mean, I lost the weight in those 9 months, but it still took years and years before I started to feel like I was really optimally healthy. And, I'm turning 41 in a couple days, actually in 3 days. And I feel the healthiest I've ever felt in my entire life. So that just goes to show that as long as you remove the interference, the body will heal, whether you're 24 like I was, 41 like I'm turning, or 81 years old. The body was built to be self-healing.
No, I completely agree. I think that's really powerful that you recognized that and then took all these steps to not only better yourself, but then help other people too, which I think a lot of times, in the space that we're in, some of the best people in our space are the people who know how to help the people they once were. Right. So
Amen.
That's what makes you such a good, that's what makes your book so great. That's what makes what you do every day great, is because a lot of times you are obviously best equipped to help the person that you used to be.
Right on. Thank you.
So with that, I want to talk to you. I'm going to get to your book, but I want to ask you about keto, right? So many people hear keto, and a lot of people are like, oh, this is just a fad diet. Lots of different things float around about keto, carnivore. But what did keto unlock for you personally that changed the trajectory of your health journey? And do you still eat keto? So tell me about that.
So keto is something I became fascinated with back in 2013. So I didn't use it for my transformation in 2008. It wasn't until a few years later I started digging into the keto diet as we know it. And what I learned about keto is that, number one, it's a metabolic process, ketosis. And that separates, keto is very different than like a vegan diet or a paleo diet, because technically it's not a diet, it's a metabolic process, but you could consume a diet to get there, or you could fast to get there. There's different ways to get there. But what I discovered is that in the beginning, when I started doing keto, I was very dogmatic. I was very aggressive with it. And, men could kind of get away with being aggressive more so than cycling women or women in general. So I was very dogmatic, but I got some great results. I felt really clear, mentally clear. I felt my workouts were improved. I was getting, just shedding extra weight, like body fat stayed low until it didn't, until I started to discover that, okay, I think I'm sticking with this too long, too aggressively. Now, my philosophy, my approach when it comes to keto is using it as a tool, but not being dogmatic, not staying in continuous ketosis, especially for women, but even for men. But I love it. I think keto is terrific. Here's why I love it, Cassie. In the United States, we have a lot of issues here. Harvard is saying by the year 2030, 50% of the population will be obese. It was less than 5% in 1930, and that's not a genetic thing. Our genes don't change that rapidly. It's an epigenetic thing that's happening here. It's our lifestyle. So we have an obesity problem. We have a cancer problem. 1 in 3 women are diagnosed with cancer within their lifetime. For men, 1 in 2. Diabetes is on the rise. Autism is on the rise. Heart disease is on the rise. So we have all these issues. And I believe a big part of the problem here is that most people's metabolism is stuck burning sugar. They're sugar burners. And when you're stuck burning sugar and glucose, your body has to produce insulin to clear that excess glucose. We have these, as you know, these tightly controlled mechanisms in place to regulate our glucose levels. And when we're constantly spiking insulin over the years, of course, it's going to lead to these issues like the prediabetes, the diabetes, and obesity. Well, I believe these people, these sugar burners, 93% of Americans, are in a keto deficiency. They forgot how to burn fat. So we just need to teach them for a period of time, not forever, but for a period of time. Let's restrict your carbohydrate intake. Let's increase healthy fats and protein. Let's maybe pair some intermittent fasting and get you into this fat burning ketosis mode, because that's all that keto is. It's a switch. When you lower the hormone insulin, you start to unlock this process of ketosis. So now you start mobilizing body fat for fuel. Those fatty acids are sent to your liver because your brain can't really use those fatty acids effectively. So your liver uses them, and then your liver produces the ketone bodies. There's 3 different ketone bodies. One of them, beta hydroxybutyrate, is the most efficient one that actually crosses the blood-brain barrier. And there's amazing benefits. I mean, when you're in ketosis, your cells are producing more energy, more ATP. You're upregulating glutathione. You're lowering your oxidative stress until you do it too long, and then you get the opposite benefit, right? So there's a sweet spot. That's like a Goldilocks effect here. So I love it. I think it's a fantastic tool, but it's not the only tool in the shed, and men do it differently than women, and women who are menstruating do it differently than women who are postmenopausal.
I love that you brought that up. So I was going to ask you, what is one of the biggest myths that you hear about keto that drives you crazy? Because one of the biggest ones that I hear is that, oh, you should just be keto forever and everyone does it the same. These people that like get on Instagram and tote that like, oh, you want to be in ketosis for the rest of your life. And, you can eat the same as your husband, even when you're on your menstrual cycle and all this. Like, that's one thing that drives me crazy. It all has to be done differently, in my opinion. So do you have a pet peeve about keto in general out there?
Yeah, that is one of them too. But I'll choose a different one because you just shared that one. I agree with you 100%. Now, in 2013, 2014, I was one of those people, but I learned the hard way. It's not something you want to do long term. It's just not. If you just think about it, right? Ketosis is a survival mechanism, right? There's nothing new about keto. There really isn't. It's just nuanced or new to some people. Ketosis, this metabolic process, has been around for as long as humans have existed. Our ancestors all used ketosis because there were times of famine. There were times where there was only meat and fat. There were no carbohydrates. So their body needed a different fuel source to survive. That's what ketosis is. So it kind of signals famine, but that doesn't mean it's bad short term. Like it's a short-term stress that forces your body to adapt. And that's where the mitochondria go through mitochondrial biogenesis. You have all these amazing things that happen until you stick with that stress too long, and then there's this hormetic curve that is lost. So I agree with you. Now, my pet peeve would be that people think all fats are created equal, meaning just because something is keto friendly doesn't mean it's health friendly. You could be eating a whole bunch of processed rancid fats and even like keto bars that have artificial ingredients in it, and it's keto friendly, but it doesn't mean it's health friendly. So not all, that's a big pet peeve because they're not all created equal. We want healthy fats. We want real whole food. It's not, there's like thousands of ways to do keto. It's the right approach that gets you all these benefits. So if I had to give a pet peeve besides the one you gave, Cassie, it's that people think all fats are created equal on keto. They're not.
Yeah, you can be really unhealthy and be keto, by the way. I have a lot of patients who try that. And it doesn't, I'm like, okay, let's talk about your blood work. So there's a good way to do it. There's a bad way to do it for sure. So I think also you talk about this flexible approach to keto, right? I think you talk about it in your book too, right? Like keto flex method. How is that different from like rigid ketosis? I think that you kind of talked about it, but like, what do you feel? Tell us about your flexible approach to keto. And like, let's say for me, so 40-year-old woman, like cycling woman, how do I flex keto and be safe versus a 40-year-old man?
Yeah, great question. So there are a few ways to do it. So for cycling women, such as yourself, the best time to utilize ketosis and even things like fasting or these different stressors, biohacks, red light, even in some cases cold plunge, would be the week of your period, the bleed week, the first maybe 10 days of the bleed week, right? That's when hormones are low. So fasting ketosis could be high. That's an example of how to do it the right way. Now, another example here would be the week before your menstrual cycle is the week you don't want to do ketosis. You don't want to practice fasting. You don't want to do cold plunging and do all these stressful biohacks. Your body wants to build hormones like progesterone. Your body wants to feel safe in order for you to produce an egg or do whatever it needs to do, even if you're not looking to get pregnant. So the week before is the worst week to do it. The week of the bleed week is the best week to do it. So those are two examples right there for cycling women.
Okay. No, I completely agree. So the week, when you start your menstrual cycle, that first week, we call that the follicular phase. And that's when our estrogen is, usually starting to come up, our insulin goes down. So it's just easier too. Like if you listen to your body as a woman, so much easier in your follicular phase. In your luteal phase, you just want to eat carbs and go to sleep. And so whenever you try to fight that, it doesn't go very well. But with men, they can just kind of utilize it at any point.
Yeah, men could be more. They could be more aggressive, right? Men have more of a 24-hour hormone recycling pattern, like the sun. Women who are going through their menstrual cycle have more of a 28-day pattern, more like the moon, right? So men could be a little bit more aggressive. But the way that I give my approach to ketosis and even carnivore, what works for me right now is that Monday through Friday, I'm doing keto, I'm doing fasting. I'm actually doing a carnivore diet. Saturday, Sunday, I flex out. I have high healthy carb days. I do minimal fasting. So I have 2 days where I flex out, 5 days where I'm in ketosis. And that's something that I've been doing now for months that works really, really well for me. If you are a man and you're overweight, you're maybe obese, or you have prediabetes, diabetes, that might not work for you right now. You probably want to be a little bit more aggressive in the beginning and maybe do 30 to 60 days of straight ketosis. And then you could start implementing some of these flex days strategically. But I do want to mention one thing. On a flex day is a high healthy carb day, no fasting, you're feasting. It's a low fat day on a flex day. It's not, you don't want to increase your carbs and have high fat at the same time. That's a disaster for your metabolism. So on a flex day, we're strategically eating more protein and carbs and having a low fat day on one of those high carb days.
So then when you're Monday through Friday, when you're doing carnivore right now, how many carbs are you eating on those days? Do you count them? You just don't really eat them?
On my carnivore days?
Yep.
Essentially zero, maybe less than 10 grams on those days.
Not even vegetables, no fruit, anything like that.
No, I don't have any fruit or vegetables on my carnivore days. Now I'll have some like this prebiotic powder that I put in my coffee. So it has some fiber and some carbs, but that's it. And other than that, I don't have any fruit or vegetables. It's just meat.
So tell everyone, what is the difference between keto and carnivore?
The difference between keto and carnivore. So carnivore means only animal products, anything that comes from an animal. So beef, chicken, eggs, in some cases people do cheese as well, butter. These are things you could have on a carnivore diet. You are in ketosis when you're doing carnivore, so that you have that in common. But a keto diet means you could actually get away with some carbohydrates, some vegetables. It's low glycemic carbs and vegetables. So typically on a keto diet, you could have like some berries, you could have some green leafy vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower. You cannot have that on a carnivore diet. Carnivore diet is no vegetables, no fruit, just anything that comes from an animal. So it's a little bit more restrictive, actually a lot more restrictive. But you also utilize ketosis when you're doing carnivore because you're essentially eating no carbs, so your body will produce ketones, you're burning fat. What I've seen is there's different levels to it. Usually somebody goes from a standard American diet to maybe like a paleo diet or a low carbohydrate diet, which is different than a keto diet. A low carbohydrate diet might be like 100 grams of carbs a day. For most people to get into ketosis and follow like a keto diet, it needs to be under 50 grams of carbs per day from non-starchy green leafy vegetables. So I've seen people go from standard American to like a paleo low carb and then a keto and then a carnivore. That's kind of been the progression. Now, you don't want to stay in carnivore just like you don't want to stay in ketosis. You want to find a good groove that works for you. But I can tell you that carnivore has been amazing for me. You know, you talk about gut health. It's been amazing for my gut health. I've applied it to thousands of students that have gone through my programs. It works so well with autoimmune conditions, gas, bloating, acid reflux, a lot of digestive issues. But it's not the only solution. Like you work on going upstream, figure out what happened to your gut, and then you do it maybe short term as you fix the gut, and then you flex yourself out of carnivore. At least that's my philosophy.
So if you're a woman, would you recommend women do it Monday through Friday? Like let's say somebody's 30 pounds overweight, they have autoimmune issues. They're like, oh, I want to try carnivore. Would you recommend that they do it Monday through Friday if it's the right time of the month, or is that too long for women to do it? Stay in ketosis for 5 days. How do you recommend they do that?
Yeah, so if it's a woman who has a menstrual cycle, I would say the first 2 weeks of your cycle would be a good time to practice carnivore. The second half, 2 weeks prior to your cycle, I wouldn't recommend it.
And so then that's when you do these like flex, call it keto flex, where you go back and forth. So then they would go into more of like a higher carb, lower fat type of diet.
Correct. Yes.
So tell everyone, just so I have two questions, but first tell everyone, give everyone like what you eat on your carnivore diet days. Like what does breakfast, lunch, dinner look like?
Yeah. So I have coffee and I'll put protein in my coffee because I don't typically like breakfast. I don't prefer to eat breakfast, but I also want to get like enough protein each day. So I'll put about 34 grams of a high quality protein powder in my cup of coffee in the morning. And then I don't eat anything until around noon or 1. That's my first meal. And it's usually steak and eggs or eggs and bacon or like burger patties. That's usually what I have for lunch. Dinner is usually the same thing. It's like steak and eggs. It's a lot of red meat. It's a lot of steak, burger patties, eggs, and sometimes I'll have goat cheese as well. I'll do chicken and turkey if I could find a good source of that. But it's usually eggs, red meat, sometimes some salmon I'll have on occasion, but eggs and red meat are my go-to typically on a carnivore diet.
And then on Saturday and Sunday, what do you just eat? Like more Mediterranean type food? What do you eat on Saturday and Sunday?
I'll have white rice. I'll have fruit on those days. I'll have like chicken, like lean chicken on those days. I like masa chips a lot. Have you tried masa chips?
I have.
Yeah, they're so delicious. They are a little bit high in fat, so you got to be careful, and they're easy to overdo. But I'll have some masa chips, which is organic tortilla chips that are cooked in beef tallow. But fruit and white rice are my go-to on the weekends.
I was gonna say because I know you told me that your parents are from Iran, and I love
Yeah.
some rice. So I was like, when are you getting when are you getting your rice? I love white rice. I love black rice. I make this forbidden rice with black rice and turmeric. And anyways,
Yum. Sounds amazing.
I do love my rice. On your off days, you should try it. I can send you the recipe, but it's very good anti-inflammatory.
Yeah, send it to me. That
I
sounds
actually think it's a
delicious.
Middle Eastern recipe. It's wonderful.
For sure.
Okay,
Sounds
so
delicious.
it is so good. So what? So if somebody's listening to this right now, completely new to like, they're like, okay, maybe I would want to fast. Maybe I'm interested in this. What is the simplest first step that somebody could take to start kind of like improving their metabolic health and working towards something like this?
Yeah, great question. The first step is to find ways to lower insulin. So many people are looking on ChatGPT now, but Google ChatGPT and they're searching, how do I lose weight? What's the best diet to lose weight? The question should be, what's the best way to lower insulin, right? Insulin is a bully of a hormone. And when you activate insulin, your fat burning hormones, they go into hiding. And what's really interesting, Cassie, I referenced a study in my latest book, Metabolic Freedom. It's called the Whitehall 2 study, which showed that you could have full-blown insulin resistance, that's also called hyperinsulinemia, for on average 6 to 14 years without your blood sugars changing at all, fasting or even your A1C. Meanwhile, because your pancreas is so active producing this massive amounts of insulin to clear the glucose until 6 to 14 years later, it can no longer produce that much, or the message is not being heard anymore. Now your blood sugar levels elevate. But as you go through that, you're going to be gaining weight because insulin is elevated. So the goal is to lower insulin. Okay, how do you do that? First step is to lower your carbohydrates and replace them with healthy fats and protein. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do keto. It just means you want to reduce your carbohydrate load. Most people eat 300 grams of carbs a day, and they eat a lot of processed carbs. So you want to reduce that and replace it with protein and fat. The reason why is because when we look at the blood insulin response from those 3 macronutrients, it's by far carbohydrates that will raise your blood insulin levels. Protein is moderate, fat very minimal. So by just making that switch, more protein and healthy fat, less carbs, you're going to lower insulin levels. The second step would be just eat 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, no snacking in between. Even if it's a healthy snack, there's going to be an insulin response. Your body's going to start its digestive systems, its processes. We're not designed to snack and graze. So just having 3 meals a day as a start is going to allow your metabolism to lower insulin in between those meals. On top of that, I would start to go for walks every single day, especially if you could time a walk your big after your biggest meal of the day, which is usually dinner for most people. If you could just go for a 10 to 30-minute walk after your biggest meal of the day, it'll blunt that postprandial glucose response. So I've seen in some studies in diabetics, it blunted that response by 33% with just a 30-minute walk, but you could do it as little as 10 minutes. So those are 3 easy steps right there. You lower carbs, replace it with protein and fat, 3 meals a day, no snacking in between, and then go for a walk after your biggest meal of the day. I think that's the best way to get started here.
Yeah, I think those are all very powerful, intelligent things to do. Also, when you eat more fat and less carbs, you're going to be less hungry. So it's going to help you not snack throughout the day. The walking is key, I think, as well, to help with the insulin spike. And to your point, the study, the Whitehall study. So I see this in practice all the time. This is, I talk about this as well. This is why you should check your fasting insulin level. Everyone, we check A1Cs in this country now because diabetes is such a, endemic issue. What is a huge issue in this country is insulin resistance. It's estimated that 93% of people actually have insulin resistance. If you use an insulin cutoff of 5, which is what functional medicine doctors will tell you to do, the lab value the lab value cutoff for insulin is 18. If your fasting insulin is 18, you have a serious problem. But we have shifted that lab up over years because nobody is 18. That doesn't mean we're healthy. That just means that that's what we've done. And so I would completely agree with what you say. I see people all the time who say, well, my A1C has been fine. My blood sugar has been fine, when really fasting their blood sugar is 95, and that's not fine either. But their insulin is 14 or 15, and it's been like that for years, and nobody's said anything to these people. And the sad thing is, if we don't say anything to these people, all of a sudden their insulin goes from 14 to 34 and their A1C goes from 5.7 to 6.5 and their fasting sugar goes from 95 to 130 in a matter of a month, and they all of a sudden develop diabetes and they don't understand why. Well, it was because 7 years prior to that, their pancreas is working so hard and nobody is telling them about it, right? So
100%.
It's a huge problem. I see it all the time.
Yeah, same. I love that you brought that up. Yeah, I make the case for that test. I mean, it's one of the most important tests that, as you just said, most doctors don't order it. The reason why is because there's not a medication to prescribe for high insulin. So why should they order it? And to your point about the reference range, it's also, I've also seen it between 3 and 28. I mean, can you imagine if it came back as 25 and your doctor's like, you're fine, you're within range? No, that is full-blown insulin resistance. So that is the most important test. There's one takeaway that you want to take action on for those watching and listening. Go get a fasting insulin. And I want to see mine between 3 and 4. So that'll be between 3 and 5. That'll be a good range. If you keep it there, you're going to burn fat and feel good.
Yeah, and I see it even in women a lot, unfortunately, who are like trying to get pregnant, all sorts of stuff. I saw a fasting insulin level last week, Ben, of 69, and the girl was fasting, and she was in her 20s. And so to your point, yes, we had a long conversation about lifestyle, sleep, stress, gut. We had a huge conversation, and zero of that conversation had anything to do with medication. It was all like, you need to take inventory of your life, sister, because you're 27 years old, and this is not conducive to normal, healthy living, right? And the sad but cool thing about that is, number one, she's not diabetic yet. Number two, it's all reversible, right? It's just like you have to make a choice and do it. And then you have to find a way you can do it. To your point, like if you told me, hey, Cassie, you can never have another carb Monday through Friday, that's not going to work for me. I'm just going to tell you, point blank, not going to work, right? But if you said, hey, you need to not eat 300 carbs a day, you need, then we can get on that page. So I tried keto once. It was a disaster. But
Was it?
It was a disaster. But to be fair, I was also, whenever I was a lot less healthy than I am now, I was insulin resistant. I had PCOS, so it's harder when you don't feel well, right? So I could probably do it now if I wanted to, but I just like my white rice. And
I understand.
Anyway, we can talk about that on another episode. But yeah, so I think that, fasting insulin is super, super important for people. And to be fair, I do like 24-hour fast or 36-hour fast or sometimes 72-hour fast every quarter. So I know I can get into ketosis. It's just
you're in ketosis doing that for sure.
I don't love to live there. We'll just
I understand.
Okay, so I want to transition and talk about your book. Okay, so metabolic freedom. So you talk in there about reclaiming health without medication. And so I want to know to you, is that what metabolic freedom is to you? Is reclaiming your health without medication? Like, is this because were you on medications when you were 24 or what, tell me what metabolic freedom means to you.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yeah, it is part of it for sure. In the United States, we spend $4.6 trillion every year on healthcare. And if that was a GDP, it would be the fourth largest GDP in the entire world. A lot of money is being spent on healthcare. And you would think, all right, that means the United States is top 5 in health. No. Top 15? No. Top 30? No. We're with like 37 or so, right? And pharmaceutical companies are richer than ever before, and yet we are sicker than ever before. And what's interesting about that $4.6 trillion that we spend every year, 1 out of every $4 is spent on diabetes, primarily type 2, which, as you just said, 100% preventable, 100% reversible, type 2 diabetes. So metabolic free, that's the opposite of metabolic freedom. When you're relying on a medication, when you're burning sugar, when you can't go and when you need a snacking graze between your meals to sustain energy levels, that is a metabolic prison. Metabolic freedom is, you're not relying on medications to mask a symptom. You are in tune with your body, so when you have a symptom, it's showing you a check engine light where you're paying attention and you're making the adjustment. You wake up in the morning after feeling well rested and detoxified the entire night through your body, and you have amazing energy levels that last throughout the entire day. You take food, whether it's carbs, protein, and fat, and your cells turn it into energy. You burn fat, you feel good. You're able to have high carb days or even days where you fast, like you said, Cassie, 24 hours, 36 hours. You could use different substrates for fuel, and your body just runs efficiently. Like, that is metabolic freedom. It's the way that God designed the human body to thrive, to take all of these substrates and use it for energy. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, 93% of Americans cannot do that. They're in a metabolic prison. They're relying on burning sugar and only sugar as their primary fuel source. They're taking 1, 2, 5, 10 medications, and that's the opposite of metabolic freedom. So the book, Metabolic Freedom, talks about the main causes that I believe have contributed to these metabolic diseases. That's the first half of the book. The second half of the book are the solutions. And then in chapter 12, the last chapter in the book, it's all wrapped together in a 30-day plan to now apply what you've just read or listened to.
I think that's very powerful, and that's amazing, because I kind of agree with you. I feel like when I hear the words metabolic freedom, here's what I think. I think you're not in prison to like live your life or eat a certain way at a certain time, right? So like I think of metabolic freedom as like you can get up, you can go about your day no matter where that is, at home, traveling in a different city, and you can fuel your body when you need to, when you're hungry, with what's available, also what you're choosing, but what's available, right? And not feel terrible afterwards, right? So like prime example, whenever I travel, it used to be whenever I was sick and I traveled, I would like pack all these snacks and I would have to make sure that like, oh my gosh, there's a restaurant we could go. I was always worried about like, where are we going to eat breakfast? Where are we going to eat lunch? Where are we going to eat dinner? Like now it's like, I just get on a plane, and if there's nothing at the airport that is enticing to me, then I just won't eat. Like I can fast if I need to. I don't need to worry about where we're going to eat or whatever. I can find something on the menu to eat. I can always eat a steak. I'm with you. I can always eat a bloody steak. Like I'm good. I don't know. To me, metabolic freedom is just like not having to plan your life around food or really think about it, right? You just live your life, and then you can adapt and take in whatever nutrients you're needing, whatever nutrients you want or need, and your body will allow you to function the way you're supposed to function, right? And you still feel well, which is really different than how I used to feel, right?
Same. Yeah. Well said. Exactly. And when I travel, I usually fast. I was just in Phoenix a couple of days ago, and the flight attendants love me because I never want anything from them. Do you want water? No, I have water. Do you want this like snack or this meal? Like, no, I'm good. If I need anything, I'll let you know. Several times when I fly, as I exit the plane, the flight attendant, this has happened many times, the flight attendants would tell me, "You're the easiest passenger to deal with." I'm like, "Yeah, because I don't need it. I just bring my own stuff, right?" That's
I don't
metabolic
want
freedom.
your crap,
I
right?
don't
Yeah.
want your crap.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I
But
think
everybody
it,
eats it on the plane. I mean,
yeah,
like 95% of people are eating.
and I think people like you and I in your book are really important for other people out there who, I see people who just, they literally don't feel well. And I say this all the time, like, patients don't go to doctors over and over and over again because they really feel well and they're like bored, right? They go because they know something's not right. Like your body is sending you all these signals. This was me for a long time too, right? I'm tired even after I sleep. I hurt, I have brain fog. I'm, constipated, or I have diarrhea, or my stomach hurt. Like there are all these symptoms and nobody can figure out how to like put them together and figure out what's going on. Well, I will tell you after, years of being an endocrinologist now, 99% of the time it starts with your gut, something that's going on in your gut. It's what you're eating, it's how you're eating it, and then that causes issues with your insulin, right? And then that leads to inflammation and that causes symptoms. And like it always goes back to that. And so I think there's so many people out there who need to hear this information, who need to read your book, who just need some validation because they go to doctors who say, "Oh, your labs look normal," because doctors don't know how to do anything but interpret a normal lab result when in fact it's really not normal. That's just the value that you've placed on it without using your brain and the signal and everything else that you're looking at. And so these people just feel like, "Oh, well, this is how normal life is," right? Like this is how I'm supposed to feel. I'm supposed to be tired. I'm supposed to, and I think they just get into like these ruts, like you said, almost like these depressive, mindsets with like, okay, well, I guess this is life. And what I really want people to know is like, that is not life. You should feel wonderful. You should feel as good as you did as, as a kid. You shouldn't hurt. You shouldn't have, brain fog. You should be able to do whatever you want all day and not be worried about food when you're going to eat or how you're going to feel. And I think it's just really important and powerful when people actually realize that. And then when you do that, to your point, like now that I eat better, feel better, I wouldn't eat Kentucky Fried Chicken if you paid me $500. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't. Zero desire to eat Kentucky Fried Chicken. I used to eat Taco Bell. Taco Bell was my
Yeah.
thing.
Same.
I used to eat Taco Bell twice a day sometimes 3 times a day. Like
Wow.
anything at Taco Bell. But I haven't eaten that in 10 years and there's no way you could pay me enough to eat it. I would rather just fast.
Same. I'm with you. I haven't had fast food in a long time. Yeah. So well said. You know what's funny about the KFC thing? I remember when I was a kid and my mom would bring home chicken. I was very happy and I was like, "Here comes the Colonel!" Like my mom walking through the door and she'd hand me chicken. But some days she would come home and she didn't bring anything home, and I would be like a pissed off little fat kid. I'd be like, "Mom, where's my chicken?" And she would say to me, "They're still frying in the same oil." And I would say like, "I don't care. What do you mean?" And she said, "No, you don't get it, Ben. It's been 14 days. The oil is supposed to be crystal clear. It's like pitch black." She said, "It looks like motor oil." So she wouldn't bring it on those days. But you have no idea when you go to even healthy restaurants, how many times they're refrying the same oil over and over and over until it turns pitch black. So be aware of that. Those seed oils, those rancid seed oils are a big issue these days.
Yeah, when you go to a restaurant, don't get anything fried. Just get a nice piece of meat or fish. I agree with you.
Good call. Grilled. Yes.
Grilled. So I wanted to ask you too. So what did you do differently in 2008? Like, how did you start? I guess we kind of just flew past that, but you didn't start keto or changing, that until 2014. So what did you do in 2008 that made you lose all this weight if it wasn't keto?
Yeah. I was eating so unhealthy that any sort of change in the right direction would have yielded me results. So my first step was just moving my body, walking outside, literally just walking, getting steps every single day. Then that turned into, okay, I want to start working out. Now, this is before I even changed my diet, actually. This is just the approach I followed back then. It wouldn't be the approach I follow now, but it was moving my body. Then I started working out. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to just eat foods that like have one ingredient for the most part. Like I don't know what to eat. I was reading Men's Health magazine at the time, like trying to find out what to eat. So I'm just going to eat like real food for the most part. So I got rid of all these processed foods, the KFC, the Taco Bell, started eating more whole foods. And then, I was kind of obsessed with exercise at that time. I was doing like 2 hours a day. I was young. I was able to do that. So it was easy to like just burn a bunch of calories and lose weight. And A lesson was learned there because I lost 80 pounds in 9 months and I got very physically fit, six-pack abs. However, even after that transformation, I had gut issues. I had bloating, probably undiagnosed SIBO, because every time I had something with fiber, I would just bloat up. I had acne. I had a little bit of brain fog, but I looked great on the outside. I was exploring different approaches after that, and I went through a vegan diet approach in 2012. And then eventually when I got to ketosis and fasting is when I really started to see the difference with my health. And then when I really went upstream and started looking at heavy metal detoxification and mold toxicity, which I had both those issues, when I cleared those two things, that's when my health just really just upgraded, and I feel the best I felt in my entire life right now.
Mold, heavy metal, gut. You got to
That's it.
detox. And
Yeah,
then
extreme.
everything else is easy and basic, right? The
True.
walking, the nutrition.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to transition to asking you 3 questions I ask every guest, and then we're going to come back at the end after this, and I want to let you tell everyone how they can find you. But just really quick, 1 word answers, like first thing that pops into your mind. Don't ever think this. What is one food that's most beneficial and why?
Man, that's tough to do one answer. Okay. The first thing that came to mind was the egg with the yolk. Eggs with the yolk. I mean, rich in choline, Mother Nature's multivitamin, tastes delicious, high in protein and fat. So egg.
Lots of people say eggs. I can get behind that. I had 3 this morning. What is one thing that anyone can do for their health that's 100% free?
Feel gratitude every single day. Don't practice gratitude, feel the gratitude. I call it vitamin G, and it's got incredible benefits.
And what is one thing you wish you would have known about your health prior to the age, let's say prior to 20, that you would have done differently? What would that have been?
That symptoms are a gift, and I should be thankful for the symptoms because my body's communicating to me. Don't hate the symptoms, but look at them as clues to get yourself better.
I like that. I say that a lot. I tell people your body can't text message you or give you a phone call or send you an email with what's wrong. If it could, I think we would have a lot less unhealthy people in this country because everyone's on their phone, right?
It's true.
But your body's way of communicating with you is through symptoms. And so you can't neglect those symptoms. You have to pay attention.
100%.
So can you give everyone listening like a 1-minute recap of what they can expect if they read your book, Metabolic Freedom, and like who would this be a good book for?
Yeah, this book is available everywhere, bookstores, Audible, paperback, hardcover. Dr. Mindy Pelz wrote the foreword. So obviously she works with a lot of women. So it's great for women. It's also great for men. It's for the 93% of people that are unhealthy. But even if you're already in this space, you're in the biohacking, health, functional health space, there are over 200 citations and studies in here. So you could geek out on that. But it's a great book to introduce to friends and family who you want to get into your world, or if you're just getting into this world of health and nutrition. It's a great book for you. There's recipes, there's a 30-day guide. It's got endorsements from some of the best people in the health space. It's also, we also hit the New York Times list, which is super cool with the book. And we're giving away a free course for anybody who buys the book over at metabolicfreedombook.com. There's an entire metabolism course. So that's where I would recommend you go. There's different retailers there, but it's metabolicfreedombook.com to get the book with the free course.
Awesome. Where is any other place people can find you or connect with you? Anything else you want to let people know about you?
Yeah, my website, benazadi.com, would be where you could find all the socials, programs, and anything else. There's a contact form. So benazadi.com is my website.
Awesome. Well, I think I want to end by just saying thank you for several things. Number one, for, being vulnerable, telling everyone your story. I think that sometimes it's hard, right? And we worry, but I think it's so helpful and impactful for people to know that, there are other humans out there that have gone through what they've gone through. And so I commend you for doing that. Congratulations for your book. It's really hard to write a book, I know. And so I think that obviously you're going to help millions, if not billions of people with this book. And so for the 93% of people who are unhealthy, you definitely want to get this book. I consider myself in the 7% of people who are healthy, and I'm also reading his book. So I think that you all should read it. I know that you'll learn something from it. So I just appreciate you for helping people. And I also know, I didn't even bring this up, but you're also a nutritionist, right? So you do a lot of nutrition work, I'm assuming, with people, which I also think is really powerful. So just thank you for everything that you do to help make the world and everyone a better place as well.
Thank you, Cassie. Yeah, you're a brilliant doctor. You're doing great work, and I can't wait to read your book. Everybody go get Cassie's book. It's coming out soon, or I don't know when this comes out. It might be out already. But I appreciate the acknowledgement, appreciate the great conversation. The world needs, both of us and so many more. So we got to rise up together, because there's a lot of people that are praying for answers. They feel hopeless and lost, and we have the solution. So your podcast, your book, your work, my book, my work, it's important for us to get it out there. So I'm grateful for this conversation, to be able to get the conversation going out to the masses.
Yeah. And I also appreciate you, Ben, because I don't feel like you're as pushy as some people. So my listeners know this. I'm not an extremist when it comes to anything. Like, I'm not an extreme anything. And although you are very keto is beneficial and carnivore is beneficial, I like that you have this flexibility aspect to you, because I think anytime you put someone in a real stringent box, you're going to have people that most people that doesn't work for, right? And so I appreciate your take on the fact that, yes, this is beneficial from a health perspective, but you're also very open to the fact that you can't do this every day forever, right? And so I think that's where you stand out a little differently. And I like how you talk about freedom and flexibility in the book, and just the way that you look at life like that, because nobody's perfect, yourself included, myself included. And so I think that it's just a lot more doable long-term if, people understand that there's this give and take.
Thank you, Cassie. Well, there's a lot we have in common. I love what you're doing. As I mentioned, you're doing some great work. So I'm grateful to know you and be on this mission with you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thanks for coming on.
The information presented, including any materials discussed, referenced, or linked within this podcast, are for general educational purposes only, not the practice of medicine. No doctor-patient relationship is formed from you listening to this podcast or utilizing any of the information provided. I am a doctor, but I am not talking to you as your doctor. The information provided is not intended to diagnose or treat health problems, or take the place of the professional medical care provided by your doctor. If you are experiencing any health problems, including problems you believe have been touched upon in any respect within this podcast, you should consult your doctor about the problems without delay. You may ask your doctor whether he or she believes the information I have provided would be helpful to you, but you should still consult your doctor immediately and follow his or her medical advice as your treating physician. I'm just here to provide you basic knowledge about the issues we discuss so you are more aware of them and can better discuss them with your doctor. That's why we call it Back to the Basics. Join me on the next episode as we continue our journey.